Welcome to the second session of starting Ruach under saddle. So what you're seeing here is a new technique that I'm trying out for the first time. So the other day I had a thought. I was like, okay, I want to start getting Ruach comfortable moving under saddle and moving in a straight line. So what if I got like objects that he could move towards, because he's a very curious horse. He likes to investigate things. And I thought maybe if there was an object that we could focus on and focus on getting to and circling, then that would help him start moving along. So I'm like, well, may as well try it. What's the worst that can happen? So I brought out a few objects. I have his Kong toy. I have a doormat that I had, and then I also have a food bucket turned over. And so these are all things that he may be curious about. Start off by just reviewing some of the things we did in the last session, which was mainly flexing his neck left and right and getting that disengagement in the hind end just to get his feet moving and help him feel comfortable moving his feet. And right off the bat, when I got on him, I noticed he just moves a little bit more freely, like he's moving in the front end too when I ask him to flex. And so that was a good sign, because in the previous session, which was his first session, he would move his hind end, but he was kind of like getting stuck on the front and just figuring things out. So already we've seen improvement. And if there's anything that this session will prove today, I think it goes to show the importance of giving young horses breaks, because after every single break I take in this session, you see improvement. So I found that very interesting. But right now, yes, I'm just working on that disengagement, getting him moving in those tight circles, getting him to bring his head to the left or the right when I ask him to. And then you can see here, he's licking and chewing, which is a sign that, okay, he's learning. He's kind of accepting what we're doing. Ruach is also the first horse where I'm using treats in the training process, more so because he's very food driven. He's still young, he's 3 years old, but he definitely has a baby mind. And so I want to make sure these interactions are good for him, that he is getting rewarded, and he feels like he knows that he's doing the right thing. So that's why I wanted to do that. And one thing, he does flex very good to the left and right. I did notice signs of frustration for him in this session, more so than like trying to bite my feet in the last session. Here, he would kind of stiffen his neck and try to throw his head the other way if I asked him to flex. And so I used that kind of as a cue of when he needed a break. So he would like stiffen his neck and throw his head, and I would still make him flex the way I was asking him to, but then I would get off and just give him time to walk around and decompress and kind of, like check out mentally for a little bit. And the length of this video is about the length of the session in total. So we only worked for about 15 minutes all in all. And so here I've already been on him, a few minutes, and this is only his second ride. So I'm like, okay, it's time to get off and give him a break, and then we'll hop back on. But I did get some comments on the last video about the best time to start a young horse. A lot of people in the comments were wondering if 3 years old was the best time to start them because they're not completely done growing yet. Mentally, they may not be fully mature. I think in America, there's a wide range. Like, especially in the racing industry, you have people starting horses when they're like 18 months old, which I am very much against. Then you also have people starting horses when they're 2 years old and riding them all day, which I'm very much against as well. But I think it is perfectly fine to start getting young horses used to situations and being under saddle. I think it's okay to saddle and sit on a 2-year-old. I think it's okay to saddle and sit and start a 3-year-old. Mind you, you want to be careful about the amount of work they're doing. When I say I'm going to take Ruach trail riding, what I really mean is my ultimate goal is to walk like 10 minutes down the beach of Oregon coast with him. So my goal isn't to go climb a mountain with a 3-year-old, but my ultimate goal is just to prepare him for that first adventure. And so that is what I'm working on here. Mind you, you have to remember that Ruach has spent the last year of his life trail riding, not being ridden, but just being ponied. And so he has built up a lot of muscle and a lot of balance compared to most 2-year-olds. So I think he is along in that way. Right here, we're starting to work with our obstacles. So remember, my ultimate goal is to walk to each obstacle and circle it. And so we're going to start seeing a little bit more forward motion from Ruach, which is good. That's what I wanted. And just giving the objects not only give him kind of like a target, but it gives me a target. Like I can look towards that object, I have a goal, and it kind of makes it more like a game. He's still not 100% confident under saddle because he's willing to walk forward like a few steps, but then he'll stop. And it's kind of like he needs the reassurance of, okay, yeah, that's the right thing. So here you saw that head toss, a little bit of frustration from him. So I asked him to flex back. And in those moments, it's really important for me to stay calm and not think, oh, he's starting to react, he's going to start doing something stupid, but just to keep myself under control and just reiterate what I'm asking for. And it was fun walking around the objects because it just made me laugh how just no spatial awareness Ruach had about walking towards them. Like he would have walked right over them if he could. And so I had to guide him around the object and help him out a little bit. But overall, I think it was really good for him. And so right now I'm just trying to get to the objects. I'm not worried about going around them. So you can see here, we got a little bit more forward movement. And he is doing well with the flexing. I am using that to encourage his momentum and direction for now. And so not only is this great for me having control, but it's also great for him because he's learning to respond to rein pressure and to leg pressure. And he's learning to respond, okay, if I pick up on this rein and add pressure with this leg, that means you need to move your body in this way. So it's a very basic beginnings, but it's the start of something. And where I started realizing that it's important to make sure training is like a game for young horses is when I started the last horse I worked with, which was Dolly. Dolly was a very good horse, but if things became like work, she was not having any of it. And it took me a little bit to figure out, but once I started introducing like objectives to our training, she immediately changed. So, for example, if I asked her to turn left, and there he goes, he's fighting a little bit, so I know he's getting a little bit frustrated, and I'm just trying to pry his head around. But when I first started her, she could not turn left. And it wasn't necessarily a pain thing. I felt like it was more so like she just mentally, there was something going on. So I brought a barrel into the arena and I used the barrel. And when I asked her to turn left around the barrel, she suddenly became much more willing because it was like an objective. And so I thought that would work well for Ruach because he's very playful, he's curious, and that may be the great place to start. So after that little head toss, we took a break just because I said when he tosses his head in this session, that was kind of his sign of frustration. So took a break, walked around a little bit, hopping back on. This is when you really start to see progress. So I was only on him for a few minutes and then we ended the session, but you're going to really start to see him moving forward here and we start getting around our objects. And it was just crazy to me, the difference. I'm like, whoa. Mental breaks are so important because if you think about it, I think I read somewhere that horses have an attention span of 18 seconds. And of course, a younger horse's attention span will be shorter than that. And so giving them that break is really important. But it's almost like he had had time to process what we were trying to do. So when we got back in here, he was like, okay, I got it. I can walk straight now, even if it's not necessarily in a straight line. I can figure it out. And then we even had to figure out getting around the obstacles here. Because like I said, his spatial awareness with that wasn't too good. So I had to make sure I steered him out far and then brought him back in. And I'm making sure, we stop and stand and give him pats so he knows the right thing. And you'll notice every time I do that, he will lick and chew, which means like he's comprehending kind of what he's doing, which is good. So it's not pretty. We were walking around sideways, but it is definitely a step in the right direction. I'm not having to flex him left and right to get that forward movement now. And I was just getting giddy at this point because I'm like, he's doing it! And Colin was there. You can probably see the big smile on my face. And so my goal was, okay, after we get around each obstacle, we will call it quits. And I do realize if I am going to feed treats, I need to be able to access them much more quickly. Because when I go to grab them, he's anticipating and then he's getting, I don't know, he's backing up and doing all that. So I need to put them in a different pocket. Because I do think he benefits from that as well. So we can see here, this was the best one yet. It was a bit more of a distance, but he walked to it, and then we were able to get around. And as soon as we get around this toy, I'm like, okay, he did great. But I'm also using scratches as another reward besides the treats, just because I think it's important for a horse not to have to rely on treats. But there you go. We did that. I was pleased. I was like, okay, we are done there. So overall, I was very pleased with how that went. I thought he did great. And I feel like I stayed more mentally in control of myself this session. If you're looking for ways to support us, be sure to check out the link to our Etsy store in the description. We have a bunch of cute horse t-shirts and things like that. But be sure to stay tuned for next session, and hopefully we'll be able to get even farther. Remember, my goal is to walk around the round pen. So see you then.